and it's from the book of Esther, and it's about the story of Mordecai. Last week was actually the first time in my life that I actually read the story of Esther, and I was like, wow, there are a lot of deep things in here, man. It's like, wow. So yeah, it's, from Esther chapter 3. Esther chapter 3, and I'm going to start reading from verse 1. Sometime later, King Xerxes promoted Haman, son of the Haggites, over all the nobles, making him the most powerful official in the empire. All the king's officials would bow down before Haman to show respect whenever he passed by, for so the king had commanded. But Mordecai refused to bow down or show him respect. Then the palace officials at the king's gate asked Mordecai, "Why are you disobeying the king's command?" They spoke to him day after day, but he still refused to comply with the order. So they spoke to Haman about this to see if he would tolerate Mordecai's conduct, since Mordecai had told them that he was a Jew. When Haman saw that Mordecai would not bow down or show him respect, he was filled with rage. He had learned of Mordecai's nationality, so he decided that it was not enough to lay hands on Mordecai alone. Instead, he looked for a way to destroy all the Jews through the entire empire of Xerxes. Recently I've been interested in like medieval games, and I actually, back in the days, I never understood what an empire was until I started browsing on the medieval times. And we need to understand, like, an empire, show how big an empire was. An empire, or having the title emperor, you're basically like a king of kings. So you have kings under your ranks. So you see kings who own kingdoms, but then an empire consists of different kingdoms joined together. And based on the scripture we read in the story, Xerxes' empire was from India to Ethiopia. Xerxes' empire was from India to Ethiopia, and it's not like how technology is right now that you can travel at very fast speed. Back then they used to trek with their sandals, or they used to ride chariots or horses. So having a place that big in that time was, so Haman was not a small man. He was really not a small man. And I browsed on like the rankings from the empire to the lowest. So the emperor is the highest in an empire. Then we have the king or queen. Then we have the duke. Then we have counties, and then we have boroughs. So you really see like the rank kind of thing, how powerful Haman actually was. So he was not a small man, number one. And from this scripture, I see Mordecai as a representation of believers, because Mordecai refused to bow down to a man. And now because of that, Haman was not going to go against all Jews. So basically I see it as, because you followed God, the devil has declared war on your whole generation. Because you follow Christ, that's alone. So you're born into war, kind of thing. And later in the story, when Haman had met his people, and then he said that they should kill the Jews and everything, he met the king, and the king agreed. And obviously we know the story of how Esther fasted and requested a meeting with the king. And there was this night that Haman was after the first night of meeting with the king, the emperor, Haman went home, and as he was going home, Mordecai was there, and Mordecai obviously did not show him any respect. My guy went home and went to meet his wife and his friends, and they all plotted against Mordecai, that I should kill him. You're a big man, what's this peasant? That kind of thing. And the day he planned to kill Mordecai, the king could not sleep. See how the Lord works. You don't need to do anything. The king could not sleep that night, and he called in his people to read the history of his kingdom. And all of a sudden, that same night that Haman had that conversation with his wife, the king was reading the history of the kingdom, and he reaches the point where Mordecai saved him from those assassins. There's not like coincidence. There's nothing like that same night. I was like, man, this is deep. That same night. And he was not like, did we exalt this guy? Did we do anything for him? And then they said no. And that moment, the Haman that came to tell the king that, he came for to request for Mordecai's head, basically, to pin him on the pole. The king asked Haman, "What will you do to a man that's that the king wants to exalt?" And Haman spoke, thinking it was him. He said, "This is deep. What your enemy planned for evil, the Lord turned around for good." Your enemy's mouth, what your enemy said, like he exalted Mordecai with his own mouth, not knowing that, that's what he was doing, kind of thing. And I was saying it as, this story is spiritual warfare, like it's a representation of where we are, who we are, and what we're currently living. And so at the end, from Esther chapter 6, verse 10. "Excellent," the king said to Haman. This was after Haman had already said all the syllables. "And quick, take the robes and my horses and do just as you have said for Mordecai, the Jew, who sits at the gates of the palace. Leave out nothing you have suggested." So with shame, my guy went and was the one that carried Mordecai, and he did all the wonderful things he said. And I see it as, what the enemy meant for evil, the Lord will turn around.